I got myself my own leadership style. So I try to lead by example just to make sure that everyone is able to be on board. And I was also helping them out in terms of any difficulties. I'll also try to make time for other people whenever they need help, trying to be supportive, provide guidance, and we try to learn together if there is something that we've just never seen before. I also try to communicate quite openly and clearly, set expectations while I'm giving them particular tasks, and also always make time if they have any questions. That's just my leadership style. So far, it works for me.
I am an actuary.
I am an actuary.
I am an actuary.
Welcome to the We Are Actuaries podcast, where you'll meet leaders who use their actuarial powers to solve a range of problems and make a real difference. I am your host, Julia Lessing, and I'm a qualified actuary based in Australia. I help actuaries develop communication and leadership skills to build great actuarial careers. So settle in, learn from the best, and be inspired. Hi everyone, today we're talking about leadership. In particular, we're talking about how to prepare for that transition from being an individual contributor to a people leader. And joining us for this discussion is emerging leader and actuary Charlie Lee. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you, Julia, for inviting me onto the show. It's very exciting to be talking to you.
It's great to be talking to you too. And Charlie, I think we first met when you applied to join the Guardian Actuarial Leadership Program, and you'd recently moved to Singapore. And I thought it was great that you were able to still dial into the sessions, even though some of them were probably quite early for you given the time difference. But that was when we first met. But I know you've got a really interesting story about how you came to be an actuary, starting with when actually you're originally from China and you moved to Australia in high school. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that's right. I'll probably say it was quite scary, given that I was quite young at the time. And then especially mentioned that it was actually my very first overseas trip ever.
Wow.
And I migrated to Australia with my parents when I was 13. We moved to Melbourne. It was an entirely different environment that I had to quickly settle in, obviously with my parents, but unfortunately my parents weren't so good in English. So I was forced to help out the family to settle in. There was one story that the second morning when we got there, so we got there the previous night, the second morning we're trying to go to a suburb centre. So it's a southeast suburb in Melbourne called Glen Waverley. We stayed in a nearby suburb called Blackburn East. So we tried to catch a bus mid-morning, hop on the bus, number 736, and we tried to buy a ticket. And me being quite good in English in school in China, I didn't prepare for the Aussie accents.
Oh, no!
So basically we're trying to communicate to the driver, and the driver tried to explain to us that you have to buy either a 2-hour ticket or a 1-day ticket.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't do any research beforehand, so we're sort of like, what's going on? And we don't even know the price.
Yeah.
So the bus driver, being such a nice person, nice Melburnian, he patiently explained to us for 10 minutes on what the price is for each type of ticket. What he suggests us to purchase, depending on what we should do during the day, which are like more questions and we struggle to understand.
Oh my gosh. All in this Australian accent that you weren't prepared for.
Yep. And it's all that. I'm doing that now, actually. Yeah, funny to think of it. Yeah, so it took 10 minutes and there was just a handful of people on the bus. They were quite patient as well. It was just a weekday, mid-morning. And in the end, we finally got what he was trying to say. And I said, okay, we just buy a 1-day ticket because we're going to stay there for probably like more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
And they go, how are we going to pay? And we produce $100 note to a bus driver. It was like, I think it was at most $10 at the time. And he was sort of shocked because we're new to the country, and that's the note.
That was the currency that you had.
That's it. And then and he went, okay, just give you a free bus ride. And we go, oh, okay, cool. That's the first instance, and it gave us a flavour of the Aussie culture, being very patient, trying to make sure that you're being looked after and everyone is patient as well on the bus. We sort of try to apologize to the people on the bus, and they go, yeah, no worries.
Wow. Well, I'm glad we gave you such a warm welcome then. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can't imagine what that would have been like. And as you said, you know, your family was relying on you to speak English, and your English was good, but having to also contend with an Australian accent with the bus driver, that would
Yeah.
have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, it was quite challenging. So yeah, and then that was a tough introduction to the lives or my own lives in Australia. And I spent 2 terms in a language school before I moved to Glen Waverley Secondary College for Year 8. And that school is quite multicultural. So we have students from various different backgrounds, from Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, a lot of Sri Lankans and Indians in our suburbs. But they were so good in English. So I was sort of shocked when I stepped into the class, and that shock actually stayed with me for about 2 to 3 months.
Did it?
Well, I don't think I spoke a word in class at all.
Wow.
Unless the teacher asked me questions directly. So I was very nervous. I didn't communicate to anyone. That was quite challenging because I thought my English was good. So people will probably just laugh at me being high school students. But it was during the school camp that it was everyone just having a light-hearted fun, doing all the activities, where most of the time you have to communicate to make sure that you finish the game or finish that activity. So I tried to open myself up a little bit, and I realized I'm actually fitting quite well. So that got me started. And at the same time, I was quite lucky during the language school times that they invited, so it was during summer, so they invited a person from Cricket Victoria to try and introduce us to the Australian sports. So it was during summer. So they introduced us to cricket, and I took an interest in that game. And I realized that because we have a lot of Indian, Sri Lankan students in class, and they really enjoy cricket. So I thought, okay, I'll just try and understand the game. And I really got into it. So that got me started to talk to different people about daily lives and how you go about things. And during summer, how do you play cricket? I actually signed up for some of cricket competition.
Yeah.
A junior cricket competition. Was pretty bad at it, but it was a community that I thought I really enjoyed, and I still watch it now. So nowadays I find myself a very unique identity. I blend in my Aussie-ness with my Chinese background. I love my coffee and my cricket. I find myself more easygoing and outspoken compared to my old self, and I think I'm more free to communicate to different people from different cultural backgrounds because I myself have experience too. So
you know what it's like firsthand.
Yeah, that's right.
What an interesting start, and an interesting way using cricket and sport to really improve your communication skills. I think that's a really great story, Charlie. And so you come from China, you had come to Australia, and now you're in Singapore. You're living and working in Singapore. Real citizen, global citizen you are. So what prompted the move to Singapore?
So I actually always wanted to work in an Asian country, being a person from an Asian background. Before I moved to Singapore, I always have that in mind that one day I'll probably want to work in either Singapore or Hong Kong, given that the 2 cities are the most, I would say, the financial centers of Asia Pacific.
A great career move for an actuary.
Yeah, and it would help broaden my perspective and exposure to the greater Asia life insurance world. So I thought I would do that after I built up enough skills and experience in Australia, just to hold up my basic skills. So story was back in early 2022. So an opportunity came up within SCOR, APAC Life and Health regional team in Singapore, which is more concentrated on SCOR group reporting side. An opportunity came up in that team. And at the time, I was already working for the Sydney team, the Australia valuation team, for more than 2 years. So quite familiar with the company and the processes. Things, thought I'll have a try, and spoke with the hiring manager. time, Chantal Bond, who was the head of Life and Health Actuarial in APAC. She is now the head of Actuarial for the whole APAC, including P&C side. So luckily, she was able to recognise my work at the ANZ team, at the Australia team, and my skill sets, knowing that there is a big step up for me to move into my current team.
Yep.
And there's a bit more consideration in terms of my ability to review certain works that are done by the local team. And she was very supportive. She trusted that my skill sets are a good fit. And she gave me an offer under the SCOR internal mobility program.
Okay.
Which is allowing me to basically transition from one region to another seamlessly.
Right. So you're still under the SCOR banner, but having that support to move countries.
Yep. Exactly. And my manager at the time in Sydney was also quite supportive of the move. It was quite nice of him because it's actually losing me to another team. But luckily, we still keep in touch because it's under one umbrella still. And we sort of just always talk about different challenges in the work. So it's good to have that network still retained and still have a very good bunch of friends down in Australia as well. So I'm
really
quite
good.
lucky.
Yeah. So sounds like you've worked for some really great leaders in your career as well. And I'm looking, I'll ask you a little bit more about that too. But still on, being in Singapore, I'm so curious about this because, I was born in Sydney. I've lived and worked within, an hour of Sydney my entire life and career. So I'm super curious about this. I mean, what is it like living in Singapore? How's it different?
Singapore is very different to Australia, I would say. It's actually quite different from my first impression of Singapore. Because I traveled here with my wife, was my girlfriend at the time, in 2016 and 17. Back then, our first impression was this country is very well built. The urban planning is amazing. There are greeneries everywhere, and the buildings look magnificent. There are so many apartments, and although we know that it's quite dense, the population is very dense in Singapore.
Yeah,
it feels like everyone's all spread out. In a way, and there are food courts and local hawker centers like everywhere.
Okay,
pretty much can find it 5-10 minutes walk, and you can find. Not like you can walk outdoor in Singapore; it's so warm. So I thought it will be a quite nice place to live in.
Yeah,
and given that it's a very multicultural country, so the country is dominated by Chinese backgrounds, and we also have Indians and Muslims or Malays. And we have expats from all over the world. So basically, you're just experiencing all kinds of culture. So I thought it's a nice place to live in. And it actually is. So those first impressions do stay with us. But once we get to the nitty-gritty things of trying to make a living, living the daily lives in Singapore, we found like some other challenges. So one thing is during 2022, well, it probably came at the wrong time. During 2022, there was a huge influx of foreign workers, expats, coming in during that year. So I signed up for the job at the start of the year, whereas because we have a small family, I had to move our young daughter, who was not even one at the time. So we're trying to plan it out, and we decided we'll land in Singapore by the end of October. So we came in late, and the rental market became so competitive that we were almost priced out. So on our original budget, we couldn't find anything that we liked. So it was only about 5 or 6 months' time. So I made a decision. So I saw what was happening. So I made a decision to land early in August to sort out a rental. So one instance, I was doing an inspection to an apartment in the afternoon, and by that night, the apartment was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, I was only halfway through talking to my wife on what the apartment was like.
Making a decision.
Yeah. So 2 shocks for me. One is that it's so competitive that we thought the price was pretty high for that apartment, and it was gone at that price.
Wow.
And secondly, someone was negotiating with the agent until 11 p.m. in Singapore.
Yeah.
On the Friday night. So. Yeah.
Wow, so that was unexpected.
That was unexpected. I thought, might as well wait until Saturday Like if I was still in Sydney, then
Yeah.
they have their own downtime. Agents will have
Mm,
their own
mm.
downtime, and you can't really reach them. But in Singapore, that's not the case. So
Wow.
very, very, very efficient in that sense.
So that
So
was a bit unexpected, but no doubt there's been some great benefits to your career from being in Singapore, and you've been there for a little while now. What are some of the benefits?
So I think from my current role compared to what I was doing in Australia, I get to see a lot more markets.
Hmm.
There are opportunities to take ownership of, say, within SCOR, one region of the valuation processes, the treaties, the products,
Hmm.
and doing the experience analysis, helping out on experience analysis for that region in
Yep.
that regards. So I'm getting a lot more exposure to different types of products and experiences specifically for that particular market. So, for instance, I'm looking after North Asia, which contains Japan and Korea market. So the
Mm.
products there are very different to what we have in Australia. And
Mm.
secondly, I think I can experience different working cultures working with. So, for instance, I'm working with a Korea team at the moment, and they have a different way of working. And I sort of have to think about how I should communicate to them and try to fit to their culture. And is there any ways that I can sort of get my information through a certain way of communicating to them?
Okay. Yeah. So what's different? Talk us through the like, can you give us an example?
So I would say the Korean culture is very subdued, and they sort of have to respect the more senior people in a way.
Hmm.
So when I was talking to them, they're being very polite, and they don't give us a lot of information. I think that's the case for most Asian cultures as well.
Mm.
Typically in China, in some regions, we also do that. So in a way, you have to build trust with them.
Mm.
So whereas in Australia, you're free to, well, I would say it's freer that you can talk to anyone at different levels.
So, Charlie, how did you build respect with the Korean team?
You're listening to the We Are Actuaries podcast, brought to you by Guardian Actuarial. For more information about our guest and today's episode, head over to guardianactuarial.com.au/podcast.
So I had an advantage in myself that I was working on the group reporting stream when I was working for the Australia team. So I knew the processes, I knew the model and everything quite well, in my opinion. So the Korea team was struggling at the time to make sure that their processes are efficient and the results are analyzed in time. So I communicated to them quite early that I had this experience. I was able to assist them in any problems that they have if they're struggling to make the timelines, and I was able to jump in to help hands on. And they sort of took that on board and try to communicate to me what the burning issues are. And I took that on board and actually tried to help them to make some practical solutions to to make sure that they are doing their analysis in time and to a better degree of accuracy in a way. And they actually saw the result quite quickly. So that I think that helped me to build the trust to the team. And I did encourage them to speak out time to time of any other issues that's happening, either to do with your processes, to do with the volume of work, and or communication within the team or other team members in the career team. So just trying to see whether I can help out. Obviously, I had to drag my manager into this, given that it's actually quite a material book of business for APAC, and my manager luckily was able to see that I was trying to help out and gave me pretty much complete freedom to handle it. And she was also my current manager's shop now. She was also there whenever I need help and assistance, guide me through on some of the decision making, some of the task prioritization, also to sort of guide me through how to communicate to different levels of people in the team, not only just the career team, but also the central team in a way. So gave me a lot of guidance in that
Yeah.
regard as well. So try to build up my skill sets and
Yeah.
communications.
Very good. So some really practical tips in there, Charlie, about building trust, about, sharing your background so that you're demonstrating your expertise, but also establishing that dialogue so that they know that you're there to help if they need help, and also involving a manager as well and getting some guidance about how to do that too. So some really great practical tips in there, Charlie. So I want to hear a little bit more about these leaders that you've worked for, because it sounds like you've worked for some amazing leaders. Tell us a bit about your current manager in Singapore. What have you learnt from that manager?
So, like I said, Shopner is very, very flexible, in my opinion. Obviously, she has her standard of work, that a very high standard of work that we try to adhere, and she tried to guide us through on how to go through with each piece of work. And she's always there when we need her to, need her opinion, expert opinion on certain matters. And she's just very so nice, and it's very easy to talk to her, very reachable. And at times she will be harsh on some of the work that we do if we're not up to standard. Obviously, we're trying to make sure that our standard of work is very high. I remember in one instance that I think I took too long to write a report, which I was like, she could see that I was struggling with it, because she expected me to finish it within 2 hours, but I was taking like the whole afternoon to do it. And she said, okay, let's have a chat right now. How about we just go through it together? So she did make time to guide me through, and that was quite early when I was in the team, because I was still trying to find my feet. And she pointed out what the direction should be quite quickly, and I realized that I was just focusing on something that's not really important. So she was able to jump on board, be very sharp, jump on board and guide me when I didn't know I needed guidance. And further down the track, I realized that she was able to see the much bigger picture than I do. And I tried to up my skills in terms of trying to understand the bigger picture of the context of our work, the background of the piece of work that we're trying to do, so that I can make a more holistic decision making. And she was able to also help me through on some of those background information, as well as understanding the context. And obviously communication styles are also very, very important. She was able to help me on that. So throughout the time that I was working with the Korea team, she was always there to help and always jump in at very crucial times to try and guide us through on the difficulties. So yeah, I'm very thankful to have her.
Yeah, she sounds like an amazing manager, and someone with that very expert combination of being able to set the standards high to make sure there's high quality work, but also be approachable and relatable and helpful at the right time too. So it's a very magical combination. Well, what about your managers in Sydney? Did you have some great leaders and managers that you've worked for in Australia?
Yeah, I did. So my previous manager, the head of ANZ valuation, Adrian Mack, he's a very nice person. Yeah. And he blended in with us quite well. I don't really see him as a manager, to be honest. He's like a very good friend to me. And when he hired me, so it was, from what I've seen, there was a big step up of responsibility to what I was joining the team for. So basically, he gave me the responsibility to handle the profit model on my own, and also one of the group reporting stream, the Solvency-II reporting, on my own. So it was quite a big step up for me, because I was more of a follower before that. I was just an analyst, senior analyst prior to this role. He gave me full freedom, gave me a chance to explore of the work that we're trying to do. And again, along the way, gave me a lot of guidance. Again, he's always there when I needed him to.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we're just engaged in a discussion for like 2 to 3 hours all the time, because at the time it was the first stage of profit model implementation. So SCOR gave us a group-led model. It was a group-wide model to implement for the local teams. And it was very, very challenging. It was during the COVID times. We're working from home. The modeling team is actually in Ireland, so there was a quite bad time difference of up to 11 hours during summer. So it was quite challenging. And I had numerous difficulties. I had to work very long days, like deep into midnight. Some days right before the reporting deadline because we just can't get any results out. And he's always there, like at 2 a.m. He's also there to work on his own things, and we were just doing a lot of discussion. I was also complaining a lot to him, and he totally understands. And in the end, it was he raised it to his manager, the CFO, Colin Weir, of the difficulty that I was facing. And Colin is also a very nice person.
Yeah.
He was naturally calm. He has incredible technical skills, so he was able to understand the problems that I had. So he then raised it to his manager, who's the CEO of the Australia office, Dion Russell, who at the time thought this is something that needs to be brought up to the wider group. He actually mentioned the difficulties of us using the profit model in the macro market meeting with all the market leads. So I got to know further down the track from Adrian, and I was in shock actually, because I see myself as a relatively junior member in the company, and the recognition is incredible for Dion to actually recognize such a small piece in the business and raise it to pretty much all the senior leaders in SCOR. And we are facing this problem. To be honest, it was only us, the valuation team, that's facing it.
Yeah.
And he thought that's not the right way to do things. And he actually took the time to raise this issue, and I thought it was incredible gesture for him to also. I'm very humbled to be recognized, the work being recognized as well.
So you were heard and you were supported not just by your immediate manager, but it also escalated through the ranks as well. And some amazing leadership there. So Charlie, managing and leading people is really different from doing the work yourself. And you've described a couple of examples about how your managers have helped you in doing your work. But how did you learn the skills that you needed to be effective in a leadership role?
I probably learned by looking at my immediate managers, the leaders in our team, chief actuaries, people like that, because I don't see myself as a natural leader. I'm more of a follower. But I do realize that if I want to realize my full potential in the actuarial field, I have to pursue on the leadership route to also become a more rounded person, not just a technical expert. But I have to also communicate and also try to lead other people. So I was sort of looking at the great leaders I've worked at in the past and assess how they run the team. So I got myself my own leadership style. So I try to lead by example, just to make sure that everyone is able to be on board. And I was also helping them out in terms of any difficulties. I'll also try to make time for other people whenever they need help. Try to be supportive, provide guidance, and we try to learn together if there is something that we've just never seen before. I also try to communicate quite openly and clearly to people, set expectations while I'm giving them particular tasks, and also always make time if they have any questions. And that's just, I think, my leadership style. I think so far it works for me. I'm not a manager at this moment, but I do have the chance to sort of temporary caretake for the career valuation team during the time they don't have a team leader. I was leading them in group reporting stream for a good 6 to 7 month period. And that was what came out of it basically was sort of learning on the job, trial and error. It wasn't all smooth sailing. As I said before, like I have to ask my manager all the time how to solve different issues. It was a very good learning experience. And then further down the track, I was enrolled in Guardian Actuarial Leadership Program, which gave me a proper guidance on the skill set and toolboxes that I should be able to have. And it gave me more insights into the possibilities that I can have for the future as well. So it was a great program, Julie.
Very good, very good. So learning from the great leaders around you and supplementing that with some practical learning as well. And then learning on the job and trialing different things and working out what your leadership style is so that you can be an authentic leader to the people that you're leading. So great advice, Charlie. So I'm going to finish with one question, and it's this. What is your top tip for actuaries wanting to build their skills to take on a leadership role?
My top tip would be to assess yourself and understand who you are, because each person will have their own communication style and leadership style, and how you would fit into the team that you're trying to lead and the people that you're trying to communicate to. So first thing is you have to know yourself before you go out and try to understand others. So I think how I came to realize that was also during this year, where I was in the middle of, I would say, a boom in the stakeholders I was trying to communicate, because I was trying to lead the career team in group reporting. All of a sudden, I have the business team coming to me. We have the financial performance team coming to me, and also the group teams coming to me on certain matters, different levels of people, and they all want different things. So first thing is I want to understand what I'm doing right now, how I'm doing it, and how then the next stage would be how to communicate that to the people that ask me questions or the people that I want to communicate to. So first thing is I would say to try and understand yourself, how you communicate, how you do the work, and then next step would be to work with others. That will be my tip.
That's great advice and a great tip around the importance of self-awareness. So thank you so much, Charlie. It's been great to hear a bit about your story and career to date, and I really look forward to seeing what you do in your career next. Thanks for your time today, Charlie.
Thank you so much, Julie. It was a great chat with you, and I hope my experiences can help other people too.
No doubt they will.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Charlie.
This episode was brought to you by the Guardian Actuarial Leadership Program, a small group program designed and delivered by actuaries to help you make that transition from technical actuary to great actuarial leader. For more information and for show notes from today's episode, visit www.guardianactuarial.com.au. Until next time.